Yo, control freaks, what's up? In today's video, we are going to take a look at placeholders in ClyphX. They're super useful if you have longer action lists where you want to make changes without editing them to stay reliable and resistant to failure caused by typing errors at the same time. They give you ultimate flexibility for X controls, and you can even get to the inner core of Ableton's LOM without Python programming or Max for Life. Let's discuss the use of variables. My name is Schlappe, and let's talk about ClyphX Pro. Before we look into different use cases for variables, let's first check out the syntax and how it basically works. Especially if you haven't had any contact with programming yet, this whole concept might be total new territory for you. But it's easier than you might think. A variable is like a placeholder you can redefine and change at any point in time and space. So let's check it out, shall we? Let's define a variable. We are going to use an xclip for this. Now you can choose a name for your variable as you like. Just make sure you only use numbers, letters, hyphens or dashes and underscores. For now, I'm going to choose a programmer's classic var as a name for the variable. And to make it clear to Cliff that this is a variable, we put percentage signs around this. So it's percentage var percentage sign. And then we are going to set the value for this. So we have an equals and we are going to set the number 3. Boom. Now, when you trigger that action, Cliff will store that value for that name. Now we can do anything with that variable. Let's print it out on the message bar. 3. Okay, let's do an action with this. Let's mute track 3, okay? So when I trigger this, it will toggle the mute state of track 3. So far, so good. What actually happens when you trigger that action, Cliff will replace that variable with the value. So these two clips are at the moment 100% exactly the same. Okay. So let's define a different value for this variable, for example, 5. And now the same clip as before affects, of course, track 5. And you also can use strings to refer to a name, for example. All you have to do is use quotes. All right. So, and now this clip will toggle the state of the track called third. All right. So that is how variables basically work. If you use only one value in one clip, it of course makes no sense to use a variable for that. But it becomes really interesting if you use the same value at many different places and you want to change that value for whatever reason. So let's put this in a musical context and we'll have a look at long action lists for live looping. Now here I have a sort of live looping scenario. I have a beat going on and I also have a bass playing, and we're going to simulate that this bass is played live. I routed this output to this track. So if I put the monitor on, you'll hear the bass. All right. So here I have a clip which will control the recording process. As you can see, this is a long action list. And for better readability, I've copied that here. So let's go through it real quick. What will this action list will do? It will delete the clip in slot 4, arm the track, set the monitor to auto, select the first clip, record for a fixed length of 2 bars, wait for 3 bars, and after that, unarms the track and set the monitors off. So this action is all in here. So when I start this action, it will record this bassline for 2 bars and then sets the monitor off and disarms the track. Okay, so far so good. When you do live looping with ClyphX, you're probably already familiar with this. How about using that same action list to record on another track to trigger another recording? So what you would normally do, you would copy that and edit this, type in the different track, in this case base 2, and then go to the next action and do this copy, or you would copy it here. And believe me, this is not a happy place to be. I've been there, I've done that. You would have to hope for the best, that there was no typing error. You would have to testing, and this is a relatively small action list. So that is where Clyph and variables come in very handy. So let's do the same action list with variables. So as you can see, I've changed that action list and replaced all the track names with a variable called rectrack. I took this action list and copied it in here. And now all I have to do is to set the variable. And now we can do the same thing, right? This is going to record 2 bars. And then after 3 bars, it will unarm and set the monitor to off. All right, so now let's do the exact same thing for a track called base 2. It's just as easy as that. That is pretty cool, isn't it? What if you want to be also flexible on the length of bars you want to record? Can we do that with variables? Of course we can. So let's have a look. There are 2 places which are relevant. The number after the fixed recording. We could do like 16 bars, but then we have to wait for 70 bars, right? To unarm a monitor track. Or if you want to record 4 bars, it would be 5. You see a pattern there, right? So it's always one more, and there's a B behind that. And there's actually a pretty nice way to do this automatically. We can do mathematic operations with variables. So when we put the variables with a plus sign and we use only numbers, this is automatically going to be added, and the variable is set to 6. And we could use the same variable and increase that variable. So we take the variable, put in the variable, and add 1 to it. And this is going, of course, to be 7, right? Do that again, it will be 8, 9, and so forth. Now, you can use that to also put in a string, because we will need to put in the letter B, right? So you use the same thing, and instead of a plus sign, we just type in the string behind, and this is going to just add the string. But beware, once you've gone to that place, there's no going back in sort of doing mathematic operations, because now what happens, it just will append, it will treat the +1 as a string and append that string to your existing string. So numbers only for mathematical operations, right? And as soon as you went down the path with mixing it up with strings, you are stuck. But you can define a new variable, right? So at the moment we have 14. You just define a new variable and use the variable we had before. So we append the word beats, and now we have 14 beats, and our number is still intact. So in this case, we want to have a B just behind the number, and you do this, you just leave no white space. You do this, et voila, you have the string we want. Now let's put this into that action list, a variable called recbars, right? And then we have another variable which will be weight bars, okay? So this is our action list. Now we need to do the calculation for the weight bars. So it's +1. So weight bars equals rec bars, okay? And then we'll add 1. Done. And then we'll append the letter B. Weight bars equals weight bars, and then no space B. Boom. I've prepared that already. So let's see. Let's record 3 bars in the track 2. Let's see. Rec bars 3, I have this, and we have 4 waiting bars. And I put the same thing here in front of that action list. So now it will record 3 bars. And after these 3 bars, it will toggle off the auto. Yeah, and we have 3 bars. Let's see, let's do 1 bar. Let's see if that works. 1 bar. It's easy as that. Let's record 252 bars. No, I'm kidding. I won't waste your time on this. So what we've done so far is of course easily possible with editing long action lists and putting them in different X clips. If you have a fairly simple set and not much of that recording going on, you might be perfectly served with just different X clips. But if you want more flexibility, you definitely should check out the variables. Another use case scenario I'd like to show you is this body. When we use X controls, we defined those 2 buttons here to recall snapshots. And I think snapshots become really musical when you use the ramping feature. So if you define a ramping speed in the X controls file, you're kind of stuck. You can't experiment. You can't change that without reloading the set. And that is where variables are a really neat solution. You can use the variables to change that parameter on the fly. Let's have a look. So you might remember this live set from our snapshot tutorial. We have 2 snaps stored, one with an open base and one with a filtered out base. I can recall those settings with the press of a button of my X-Touch Mini, which I have installed as an X control. Now to introduce the ramp feature, we have to go into the xcontrols.txt file and define a time. Now, we would be stuck with that, right? So let's introduce a variable and let's call it standard ramp time, because it's a good idea to choose a name or which describe what they are for, right? That makes it a lot easier at a later point. We now can set a value for this time, and let's go with 50 milliseconds. Cool. Now, let's try it. How does it sound with 5 milliseconds? Or maybe 100 milliseconds. See, it's super flexible and it's super easy to change values when you have variables in place. That's it for the main tutorial. I think now you know everything you need to know to get started with variables. However, I have some really cool gimmicks I want to share with you in a bonus video on my Patreon page. So head over there if you're interested. If not, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and always stay in control. Peace.